Part 1, The Scarlet Betrayal. The red silk of my bridal veil felt like a suffocating shroud. All day, I had leaned on the arm of the man I believed was Prince Jian, the gentle scholar I was destined to marry. I had felt a strange stiffness in his posture, a calloused roughness in his grip that did not match the man I had glimpsed from behind folding screens. I dismissed it as wedding day nerves. When the heavy doors of the bridal chamber finally clicked shut, the silence was deafening. Prince Jian. I whispered, my heart fluttering. The ceremony was long, but we are finally home. The veil was not lifted, it was ripped away. I looked up, the smile freezing on my lips. Standing before me was not the refined Prince Jian. It was his younger brother, the mad general, Prince Wei. You. I gasped, stumbling back until my spine hit the cold bedpost. Where is Prince Jian? Why are you in our bridal suite? Prince Wei looked at me with eyes as dark as obsidian. He didn't look like a man who had made a mistake. He looked like a predator who had finally cornered his prize. Prince Jian is where he wants to be, he said, his voice like grinding stone. In the West Wing. With your sister, Lin Mei. The truth crashed down on me. My innocent sister, the White Lotus of the Lin family, had stolen my husband. No. Lin Mei was to marry you. This is a mistake. The palanquins, the servants. There was no mistake, Lin Mei, Prince Wei interrupted, his hand shooting out to grip my wrist. It was Prince Jian. Your kind scholar orchestrated the entire scheme. He and Lin Mei have been meeting in secret for months. She wept to him, telling him I was a brute. She played the fragile blossom, and Prince Jian decided he couldn't live without her purity. He bribed the bearers. He switched the incense. He gave you to me. And you? I hissed. You knew. You knew he was trading me like a piece of silk, and you stayed silent. I knew, Prince Wei admitted, pouring 2 cups of wine. Prince Jian offered me a deal. If I accepted the swap, he would support my claim to the northern border garrison. He thinks he got the better end of the bargain because Lin Mei acts like a blooming flower. But I know a weed when I see one. I chose the woman who actually knows how to survive. Part 2, The White Lotus's Web. I thought back to the weeks leading up to the wedding. Lin Mei, with her wide, tearful eyes, had spent every afternoon in my chambers, comforting me about the weight of being the first princess. Sister Lin Mei, she had sighed, clutching a handkerchief, you are so strong, so rigid. You are perfect for a scholar like Prince Jian. But someone like me. I am too delicate for this world. I fear Prince Wei will break me. She had used that same White Lotus persona to manipulate Prince Jian. She didn't want him for his heart, she wanted the status of the elder brother. She had convinced Prince Jian that I was cold and unfeeling, while she was a soul in need of rescue. She had turned my own betrothed into a thief of my future, all while smiling to my face. Part 3, The Morning Performance. The next morning, the sun rose on a world that was now a battlefield. Prince Wei and I entered the ancestral hall for the morning tea ceremony. There they were, Prince Jian and Lin Mei. Lin Mei was dressed in pale, shimmering silks, clinging to Prince Jian's arm as if she might faint at any moment. When she saw me, her eyes filled with crocodile tears. She stepped forward, her voice a fragile whisper. Sister, oh, Sister Lin Mei. Are you well? Last night, the confusion with the palanquins. I was so frightened when I found myself in the West Wing. I cried until Prince Jian comforted me. Prince Jian looked at me with a mix of guilt and smug superiority. Lin Mei, it seems fate has a mind of its own. Heaven clearly saw that Lin Yu's temperament was better suited for my household, and yours, well, the general's estate requires a woman of your firmness. He was insulting me to my face, justifying his betrayal by labeling me rigid. I didn't scream. I didn't slap her. I lowered my head, letting a single, perfect tear fall. If the prince says it is fate, I must accept it. But Lin, you look so pale. Is the West Wing too drafty for someone as delicate as you? I am fine, sister, Lin Yu chirped, sensing an opening to play the martyr. Then you must take my personal physician, I said loudly, ensuring the nearby court ladies and the Empress's attendants overheard. And I shall send over my strongest tonics. It would be a tragedy if the first princess was too frail to manage the palace accounts or attend the Empress's spring rites. People might whisper that you aren't fit for the position. Lin Yu's smile faltered. By highlighting her frailty in front of the court, I was marking her as a liability. In the imperial palace, a delicate woman who cannot fulfill her duties is soon replaced. Part 4, The Vow of the Thorn. As we walked away from the happy couple, I felt Prince Wei's presence at my side. He had watched my performance with a dark, appreciative smirk. You started the fire, he murmured. Prince Jian thinks he traded a rigid wife for a delicate one, I whispered, my voice as sharp as a dagger. He doesn't realize he just traded his strongest ally for a parasite. Prince Wei, you want the northern border? I will give you the whole empire. But in return, I want them to crawl. I looked back at my sister. She was laughing, thinking she had won. She didn't see me, the rigid sister, now holding the match that would burn her garden to the ground. Prince Wei, I said, the northern garrison support you promised Prince Jian. Delay it. Let him struggle. Let him turn to his perfect wife for help and find nothing but tears and poetry. Let us see how long their true love lasts when the gold runs out and the emperor's favor turns to us. Prince Wei raised my hand to his lips, his eyes burning with a new kind of hunger. To a marriage built on a lie, he toasted, and a future built on revenge. I watched my sister one last time. The White Lotus may have bloomed through deception, but I was the thorn that would protect the throne. And I would ensure my light shone so bright that Prince Jian would spend the rest of his life mourning the woman he threw away. Part 5, The Banquet of Whispers. The Imperial Autumn Banquet was the first major event since the accidental swap, and the palace was thick with the scent of osmanthus and predatory curiosity. Every noble in the capital was waiting to see how the daughters of the Lin family had adjusted to their switched fates. Prince Wei stood beside me, his dark military formal were a sharp contrast to the colorful silks of the court. He leaned down, his breath warm against my ear. Lin Mei, the vultures are circling. They expect you to hide in shame while Prince Jian parades his new prize. Let them look, I replied, smoothing the front of my deep crimson gown, a color forbidden to those who are weak. A predator does not hide from its prey. As we entered the hall, the chatter died down. I didn't walk with the timid steps of a wronged woman, I walked with the measured grace of a queen. We took our seats directly opposite Prince Jian and Lin Yu. Lin Yu looked stunning in pale peach, but she looked exhausted. The fragile act was easier to maintain in a bedroom than in a palace requiring constant vigilance. Beside her, Prince Jian looked strained. Without my secret management of his correspondence and schedules, he was clearly drowning in the logistics of his new role. Sister Lin Mei, Lin Yu called out, her voice fluttering. I am so glad you could join us. I was worried the rugged lifestyle of the general's manor might be too taxing for you. I offered a thin, sharp smile. On the contrary, Lin Yu. The clarity of the military life suits me. I find it much more honest than the hidden currents of the West Wing. But you look weary. Has the bookkeeping for the prince's estates been difficult? I know how much you always struggled with arithmetic. The surrounding duchesses paused, their fans slowing. A first princess who couldn't manage accounts was a social disaster. Prince Jian cleared his throat, his face flushing. Lin Yu has been focused on her health. The transition was quite a shock to her system. Of course, I said, my voice dripping with honeyed poison. But the emperor's birthday is in a fortnight. Surely, as the wife of the elder nephew, Lin Yu has already organized the silk tributes and the guest seating charts. It would be such a shame if Prince Jian's household appeared disorganized in front of His Majesty. Lin Yu's eyes widened in panic. She hadn't even known about the seating charts. She looked at Prince Jian, but for the first time, he didn't look back with adoration, he looked at her with a flicker of mounting pressure. Actually, Prince Wei interjected, his voice booming enough to capture the entire table's attention. Lin Mei has already finished the logistics for the northern garrison's winter supplies. It seems my wife has more than enough energy to help the West Wing if they are struggling. The humiliation was subtle but total. I had just signaled to the entire court that while I was running a military supply line, Lin Yu couldn't even handle a dinner party. Oh, I wouldn't dream of intruding, I said, catching Prince Jian's gaze. I saw the ghost of regret in his eyes as he looked at my composed, powerful silhouette and then at his trembling, weeping flower. I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough for the four of us to hear. Do not worry, Prince Jian. I'm sure Lin Yu's poetry will be enough to satisfy the tax collectors when they come calling. I turned back to my wine, feeling Prince Wei's hand cover mine under the table. The hunt had officially begun. Part 6, The Poisoned Gift. The fortnight leading up to the Emperor's birthday was a masterpiece of calculated chaos. While Lin Yu scrambled to understand the complexities of palace protocol, I ensured that every merchant and official she dealt with was helpful in the worst way possible. I recommended the most expensive, outdated weavers and the most arrogant tutors. I let her drown in the luxury she had stolen, knowing she didn't have the lungs to breathe in deep water. The night of the celebration, the great hall was a sea of gold and jade. Prince Wei walked at my side, his presence like a looming storm cloud that commanded respect. The trap is set, I whispered. I almost feel sorry for Prince Jian, Prince Wei replied, though his dark eyes glinted with amusement. He wanted a blossom, he's about to realize he bought a handful of dust. As the evening progressed, it was time for the presentation of gifts. Prince Wei and I stepped forward first. We presented a map of the northern territories, etched in silver, detailing 3 new trade routes we had secured. It was a gift of power, of stability, of wealth. The Emperor nodded, his eyes bright with approval. A sturdy gift from a sturdy couple, the Emperor remarked. Well done, Prince Wei. Well done, Lin Mei. Then came Prince Jian and Lin Yu. Lin Yu stepped forward, her face pale beneath layers of rouge. She gestured to the servants, who unveiled a massive, intricate embroidery of a phoenix rising from the flames. It was beautiful, but as she began her rehearsed speech about rebirth and peace, a low murmur broke out among the elderly ministers. I hid my smile behind my sleeve. I had suggested the phoenix design to Lin Yu's maid weeks ago, knowing full well that this specific style of phoenix, with 5 tail feathers, was reserved exclusively for the Empress Dowager, who had passed away just months ago. To use it now was not a tribute, it was an omen of death and a breach of mourning taboos. The Emperor's face turned from gold to granite. Who designed this? He asked, his voice a low vibration that made the wine in the cups tremble. Prince Jian, sensing the shift in the air, tried to step in. Your Majesty, Lin Yu worked tirelessly. I asked, the Emperor barked, who chose this pattern? Lin Yu fell to her knees, her delicate nature finally failing her as she began to tremble. I thought it was beautiful, Your Majesty. I wanted to show the rebirth of the dynasty. You chose a funereal pattern for my birthday, the Emperor hissed. Is the West Wing so eager to see me in my grave? No. Your Majesty, Lin Yu turned to me, her eyes wild with realization. Lin Mei. You said. I said what, sister? I interrupted, my voice full of soft, practiced concern. I stepped forward, bowing deeply to the Emperor. Your Majesty, please forgive my sister. She has always spent more time on her poetry than on her studies of imperial etiquette. I am sure she did not mean to insult the throne with such a grisly reminder of the late Empress Dowager's passing. I didn't defend her, I branded her as both ignorant and disrespectful. Prince Jian looked at Lin Yu with a flash of genuine coldness. His reputation was tied to hers, and she had just humiliated him in front of the entire court. He didn't reach down to help her up. Instead, he took a step back, distancing himself from her failure. "Take it away," the emperor commanded, waving a hand in disgust. "And Prince Jian, see to it that your wife learns the laws of this palace before she sets foot in my sight again." As they retreated in disgrace, the whispers followed them like biting flies. I felt Prince Wei's hand on the small of my back. "You didn't just burn her garden," he murmured. "You salted the earth." "The fire is only beginning, Prince Wei," I replied, watching Prince Jian's retreating back. Tonight, he realized what he lost. Tomorrow, he starts to hate what he gained. Part 7, The Fractured Heart. Late that night, as the fires in the palace braziers burned low, I stood on the balcony of the general's estate. The air was crisp, smelling of coming winter. A shadow moved in the garden below. I didn't need to see his face to know who it was. The scholar's gait was unmistakable. "Lin Mei," a voice called out from the darkness. Prince Jian stepped into the moonlight, looking disheveled, the kind scholar now replaced by a man haunted by his own choices. "We need to talk." I looked down at him, my expression as cold as the moon. "There is nothing for a general's wife to say to her sister's husband, Prince Jian." "You did that on purpose," he hissed, his voice cracked with emotion. "The embroidery, the bookkeeping, you are destroying her." "She destroyed herself the moment she stepped into my palanquin," I replied. "And you destroyed yourself the moment you handed me over to your brother like a piece of unwanted baggage. Tell me, Prince Jian, is the White Lotus as sweet as you imagined? Or is she just a weed that wilts the moment the sun gets too hot?" He was silent, his hands clenched at his sides. He couldn't deny it. The purity he had craved was proving to be nothing but incompetence and manipulation. "I made a mistake," he whispered, the admission hanging in the air. "A mistake is a wrong word in a poem, Prince Jian," I said, leaning over the stone railing. "This was a betrayal. And unlike you, I do not forgive." From the shadows of the doorway behind me, Prince Wei stepped out. He didn't look angry, he looked possessive. He wrapped a heavy fur cloak around my shoulders, drawing me back against his chest. "My brother seems to have lost his way," Prince Wei said, his voice echoing in the courtyard. "Shall I have my guards escort you back to your fragile wife, Prince Jian? Or should I remind you that trespassing in a general's quarters is an act of war?" Prince Jian looked at us, at the strength of our union, at the power I now wielded, and his face crumbled. He turned and fled into the night. I felt Prince Wei's heart beating steady against my back. "He's broken," Wei noted. "Not yet," I replied, a dark smile touching my lips. "He still has his title. We haven't taken that away from him. Yet." Part 8, The Price of Treason. The seasons shifted, and the palace grew colder, not just from the snow, but from the rising tension in the imperial court. Prince Jian's reputation was bleeding out. Without the northern garrison support that Prince Wei had strategically delayed, Prince Jian's influence among the ministers had withered. Meanwhile, Lin Yu had grown desperate. Her White Lotus act no longer worked on Prince Jian, who now spent his nights drinking or buried in the ledgers I had intentionally sabotaged. One evening, a secret message arrived at the general's estate. It wasn't from a spy, but from Lin Yu herself, written on scented paper that trembled in my hand. "Sister Lin Mei, I am dying of a broken heart. Please, meet me at the Lotus Pavilion at midnight. I have something of our mother's that belongs to you. Let us end this war." "It's a trap," Prince Wei said, standing behind me as I read the note. He was cleaning a ceremonial dagger, the moonlight catching the steel. "Of course it is," I replied. "Lin Yu doesn't know how to give, she only knows how to take. She wants to lure me out to frame me for something, or perhaps to ensure I don't return at all. I'll send a troop of guards," Prince Wei countered. No, I said, turning to him. If you send guards, she plays the victim again. If I go alone, she thinks she's the hunter. But I want you nearby, Prince Wei. I want you to see the moment the lotus finally rocks. Part 9, The Midnight Ambush. The Lotus Pavilion was a skeleton of wood and stone in the winter. The pond was frozen, and the air was deathly still. Lin Mei stood there, wrapped in white fox fur, looking like a ghost. You came, she said, her voice devoid of its usual sweetness. You have something of mother's? I asked, keeping my distance. Lin Mei laughed, a shrill, jagged sound. Mother always loved you more. Mei is the foundation, she would say. You is just the ornament. Well, the ornament is tired of being shattered, Sister Lin Mei. She stepped forward, and I saw the gleam of a small jade vial in her hand. The Emperor's health is failing. Everyone knows it. Prince Jian is desperate. He thinks if he can prove you and Prince Wei are planning a coup, the Emperor will restore his standing and give him the northern garrison. A coup? I stepped closer, my eyes narrowing. That is a dangerous lie, Lin Mei. It's only a lie if there's no evidence, she hissed. She smashed the vial at my feet. A pungent, metallic scent filled the air, black aconite, a poison restricted to the Imperial Guard. I've already planted the matching vials in your bedchamber. And tonight, the guards will find you here, meeting with a contact from the northern rebels. On cue, torches flickered in the distance. The sound of armored boots marched toward the pavilion. Lin Mei suddenly grabbed my arms, tearing her own robes and scratching her own neck. Help! Help, she screamed, her voice reverting to that high, pathetic wail. Lin Mei is trying to kill me. She's confessed to the treason. Help! She threw herself toward the frozen pond, intending to fall in and look like a victim of my rage. Part 10, The Master's Countermove. I didn't move. I didn't even try to stop her. As the guards rounded the corner, led by a frantic Prince Jian, they didn't see a murder. They saw Lin Mei screaming at a woman who was standing perfectly still, hands folded calmly in her sleeves. Stop! Prince Wei's voice thundered, cutting through the chaos. He stepped out from the shadows of the trees, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood the head eunuch of the inner palace, the Emperor's personal shadow. Lin Mei froze, her hand still clawing at her own throat. Prince Jian skidded to a halt, his face turning ghostly white. The Empress requested I keep an eye on the delicate, second princess, I said softly, my voice carrying over the wind. She was worried Lin Mei's mental state was fracturing under the pressure of the West Wing. The head eunuch stepped forward, his eyes cold as he looked at the smashed vial of poison. This scent, this is poison from the royal dispensary. Poison that was reported stolen from Prince Jian's private cabinet only yesterday. I looked at Prince Jian. You were so eager to frame us that you used your own registered supplies. How sloppy, Prince Jian. I taught you better than that when I used to manage your affairs. Prince Wei stepped toward his brother, his shadow looming over him. You traded a loyal wife for a woman who would burn the palace down just to spite her sister. You didn't just lose the northern garrison tonight, brother. You lost your head. The guards, who were supposed to arrest me, turned their spears toward Prince Jian and Lin Mei. No! Lin Mei shrieked, reaching for Prince Jian. Jian, tell them. Tell them it was her. But Prince Jian looked at her with pure, unadulterated loathing. He pushed her hand away. Get away from me, he whispered. You've ruined everything. Part 11, The Hall of Supreme Justice. The imperial court was a canyon of gold pillars and bated breath. This was not a mere family squabble, it was a trial for high treason. The emperor sat upon the dragon throne, his face a mask of disappointment. Below him, Prince Jian and Lin Mei knelt on the cold stone, stripped of their royal finery and dressed in the grey robes of prisoners. I stood to the side, my posture regal, with Prince Wei standing like an iron sentinel behind me. Prince Jian, the emperor's voice echoed. The head eunuch has presented evidence of stolen poison and a fabricated coup. Have you anything to say before I pass judgment? Prince Jian looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Your Majesty. I was led astray. I was told my life was in danger. I was told Lin Mei and Prince Wei sought to usurp you. My only crime was loving too much. I sought to protect the throne from a rigid woman and a mad general. I stepped forward, the silk of my gown hissing against the floor. Loving too much, Prince Jian. Or coveting too much. I pulled a bundle of letters from my sleeve, the final nail in their coffin. These were recovered from the West Wing's hidden floorboards. Letters dated 6 months before our wedding. In them, Lin Yu describes how she would use her frailty to lure the elder prince, while you, Prince Jian, detailed the plan to bribe the palanquin bearers with gold stolen from the northern garrison's payroll. The court gasped. Stealing from the military was a death sentence. Lies. Lin Yu screamed, her White Lotus mask finally shattering into a jagged mess of rage. You forged those. You've always hated me because I was the beautiful one. Because I could make men weep with a single look while you could only make them fear you. I looked down at her, my expression one of pity. I didn't make them fear me, Lin Yu. I made them respect me. You confuse the two because you have never known either. Part 12, The Emperor's Verdict. The Emperor signaled for silence. He looked at Prince Wei, who had remained silent throughout the proceedings. Prince Wei, you were the one traded like a pawn in this game. What say you? Prince Wei stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Your Majesty, my brother thought he was giving me a burden. He thought he was saddling me with a cold woman so he could enjoy a warm one. But in the north, we do not value warmth that dies in the first frost. We value the hearth that survives the blizzard. He turned his gaze to me, and for a moment, the coldness in his eyes softened into something terrifyingly loyal. Lin Mei is not a burden. She is the soul of my house. To insult her is to insult the northern border. To betray her is to betray the empire. The emperor nodded slowly. The evidence of theft from the military payroll is irrefutable. The attempt to frame a general of the realm is an act of war against our own blood. He stood up, his yellow robes shimmering. Prince Jian, you are hereby stripped of your title. You are no longer a prince of this house. Your name shall be struck from the ancestral records. Prince Jian collapsed, his forehead hitting the stone. And Lin Yu, the emperor continued, since you claim to be so delicate that you cannot handle the duties of a princess, you shall be sent to the borderlands. You will work in the weaving huts that supply the soldiers' uniforms. Let us see if your fragile hands can contribute something of value to the empire you tried to destabilize. No. Lin Yu wailed, clutching at the emperor's dais. Not the borderlands. It's too cold. I'll die. Then die, Prince Wei said coldly. At least your death will be honest. Part 13, The New Dawn. A month later, I stood on the highest rampart of the palace, watching the sunrise. In the distance, a small, heavily guarded carriage was departing toward the harsh, frozen north. Inside was the woman who had tried to steal my life and the man who had thought I was replaceable. They were going to a place where poetry wouldn't buy food and tears wouldn't melt the ice. They had each other, the true love they had betrayed me for, and I knew, with a bitter satisfaction, that they would grow to hate each other more than they ever hated me. A heavy fur cloak was draped over my shoulders. I didn't need to look to know it was Prince Wei. The Emperor has signed the decree, he murmured. We are officially named his heirs. The court is already calling you the Empress of Thorns. Do you mind the name? I asked, leaning back against him. Not at all, Prince Wei replied, his arms wrapping around my waist, his grip firm and steady, not the rough grip of a predator, but the strong hold of a partner. Thorns are what protect the flower. And I think, Lin Mei, we are going to grow a very different kind of garden. I looked out over the empire that was now ours. The betrayal was a shadow in the past. The future was a blade of light, and I held the hilt. Let them call me what they wish, I said, my voice carried by the wind. As long as they remember, I am the sister who survived. And I am the wife who conquered.